our meeting to order. Can we please pause for a moment of silent prayer? Amen. Chair will entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add under updates, Attorney General's opinion.
Second.
It has been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Second.
It has been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. So first on the agenda will be the AG's opinion, and we have our attorney, Kevin Pulley, on the line. Mr. Pulley, can you hear?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear loud and clear.
All right, you have the floor.
Good afternoon again, board members. On yesterday, I received a call from Attorney B.B. Gerard, who works in the Opinions Division of the Attorney General's office. And she acknowledged the receipt, of course, of our request to our questions regarding Mississippi Code Statute 37-1365, which talks about school closures, and specifically who has the authority to close the school, whether it is the superintendent alone or whether the board has to have some sort of approval. She prefaced her statements by saying that they do not currently have any official opinion yet because it's still in the drafting stage. But she wanted to call me to give me an unofficial oral opinion. That unofficial oral opinion discussed that while the statute is very confusing and it could be left open to interpretation, that she was sure that when the official opinion comes out, that without a doubt it would state that schools cannot be closed without prior board approval relating to an epidemic prevailing in the school district. And so that is the information that she shared with me, and I did send the board an email regarding this information on yesterday. Given that opinion, board members, and I'm saying opinion, but keep in mind it is not a formal written opinion as of yet from the AG's office. Given that opinion and given looking at policy AFC that discusses school closure, I would advise the school district to do a few things, the school board to do a few things. Number one, I would advise the school board that in accordance with the state statute and the unofficial opinion that we've gotten yesterday, I'm advising that the board revise policy AFC to state that no school shall be closed without prior board approval. Currently, that policy is contradictory. Some parts of the policy state that the superintendent has the authority to close the school and then notify the board as later. But given that the AG's opinion that forthcoming will state that it needs prior board approval, I would suggest that we change that policy to reflect what state law is, because our policy cannot deviate from state law.
That's a question.
Now, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. President, did you have a question?
Nice question, Madam President. So, Attorney Pulley, just for clarification, in the event that a school needs to be closed, two questions. Now we're suggesting that a board meeting be called to receive board approval to close said school, correct?
Look, man, is there any way we could, I couldn't hear all of the questions.
Will we have to call a board meeting to close a school based upon this opinion?
Based on that opinion, you would have to have prior board approval before you close the school. And so to answer your question, the answer is yes.
All right, and then my next question is my final one. What happens in the event a school needs to be closed and the board is unable to gather a quorum to have a meeting to close the school?
I do believe, Dr. Bailey, that at some time in the past, the school district came into contact with that situation, and I believe that is the reason why we have our policy at AFC that further then started to allow superintendents to close the school as long as the superintendent notifies the board regarding it, because I do think that there may be some times, such as snow and ice and all that, that may come about unexpectedly that would allow the school to be closed, and you can't proceed legally. And to give you an example, if there's a snowstorm and ice on the road, you have to give 1 hour notice of a special call meeting, and if the school needs to be closed, I don't know if it would be time to follow all the legalities of it. I did ask Attorney B.B. Gerard from the Attorney General's office those questions, and while she can't give me those answers, she could only give me an answer related to the statute that I asked. So she couldn't really give me any information on that. I do see that being probably problematic. However, the only thing I can tell you is that according to that unofficial opinion, that schools cannot be closed without prior board approval.
Any other questions, board members? So Attorney Pulley, at this time, are you saying, at this special call meeting or at our upcoming meeting, that we change and revise our policy AFC to reflect our state law?
Yes, I believe that needs to be changed immediately. That is the board's wishes. We can do it at the next scheduled board meeting. But to give time for the reading of the policy, any deliberations on it, and so they can be implemented at that time.
Madam President,
Yeah.
would that meeting be based on, because right now we have an unofficial, do we want to wait on official status? Before
Well,
we make
the
that-
board still would have the authority to change the policy if that is the consensus of the board. That is correct. I do not have a written opinion as of yet from the Attorney General's office. However, I did receive a phone call from someone very reliable from the AG's office, Attorney B.B. Gerard, and she's basically telling me that is what the opinion is going to say. If the board is not comfortable in changing this policy until we wait on that opinion, that would be the board's decision.
Board members? Chair will entertain a motion to change or revise policy AFC to reflect state law. It's been motioned and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, it's simply because I haven't had a chance to review that policy.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. Let the record reflect that Dr. Roshan Bailey voting nay. Next, we have updates. Dr. Brown.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First update, Leflore County High School and Leflore Elementary Schools, were placed on a 3-day virtual instruction. Exterminators did come out to the schools. There are stray animals living underneath buildings on the campus of Leflore County High School. The district did hire exterminators to go through and spray the campuses, the campus of Leflore County High School, and they have also sprayed the campus of Leflore County Elementary School. And the chemicals that they were using or have used kills over 200 different insects, including fleas. The exterminators are continuing to remove some of the stray animals that are underneath the building. So as of today, they have sprayed both sites. And they are, as I stated, continuing to remove some stray animals from the Leflore campus. They will return next week to do a second application of spraying, and the week after to spray a third application. Those two applications or the following times will be over the weekend or after school has been dismissed so that there are no students on campus. Davis Elementary School, there's an update regarding Davis Elementary School over the weekend of September 4th through the 5th. The Davis Auditorium exterminators came out to Davis and they placed foggers and traps and poison for bats, B-A-T-S. They did remove over 30 bats from the area. As of today, the poison is continuing to work. Yesterday, there were 2 more bats that were exposed of. No others are living in the area. The exterminators will continue to come back to monitor to make sure that any locations where bats may be able to enter is sealed off and that there are no bats at Davis Elementary.
So, Dr. Brown, so we know from the previous years that there's an infestation at Davis. What company are we using?
Reed Extermination.
So do they specialize in bats? Because, Mr. Johnson, I'm sure we can use our ESSA funds, to make sure, that we get rid of those bats from years and years.
And just to, I guess, kind of preference, what I understand is just like, and I would say just like any rodents, you know, it's a possibility that they will come back. I think the main component is making sure that the open entry areas can be sealed off, because we do have bat activity in this area that I wasn't aware of that we had as much as we have. And the exterminators, they have done bats, they have done the disposal. We hadn't had any issues as it relates to the lower elementary since they did the extermination this summer, and the auditorium was just done that week of September the 4th and 5th. And as of now, there's no other bat activities. But one of the things the exterminator did preference was making sure that any entry points would to be sealed off, and that would keep the bats from returning in, because he did indicate that if it's not properly sealed off at those entry points, they could return.
So that would require something other than an exterminator, correct?
Correct.
So I'm saying, have we hired the proper people to make sure that they know what they're doing to get rid of them?
Well, it's the sealing of the roofing area, and that'll have to be an architect contract to kind of look at making
So I'm
sure.
saying, with those ESSA funds, have we contacted someone?
Not with ESSA, that have to be wrote prior to the application being done, but there's something that I can do outside of ESSA funding to look at the roof, because
But I'm
basically
saying,
it's
okay,
gonna
but
be a roof.
since we have the exterminators, what I'm asking is, have we hired anybody to go in and do, to make sure that we get rid of the bats other than the exterminators?
No, not other than exterminate to get rid of the bats. No.
Madam President,
Yes,
I concur with Ms. Milton's concern, because it's my understanding that you do not destroy bats, that you put up the poles around the place to try to draw them and remove them, but I didn't know that you could destroy bats. I think we need somebody that's an expert on that.
And I guess in the sense of, you saying kill them, or when you saying destroy?
You can't give them poison to kill them. Would you
Well,
check on that, please?
yes, I would check on that, but I actually saw where the possibly using. I did see the dead bats removed. I witnessed that.
We need an expert on bats.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Dr. Brown, my question would be, concerning Leflore County High and Elementary. So the exterminator removed the stray animals?
Well, it's my understanding that the animal rescue or dog catchers were called, and nobody wanted to, now, this is just what I was told, that didn't wanna go underneath the school to remove the stray animals. So the exterminator went under the school to, remove some of the animals, not all. I don't think they were able to get them all, so they're still trying to remove the animals from underneath the building. It's just a family of dogs and cats, from what I'm told.
How will this problem, continue to be rectified with an open campus?
So as far as going underneath the school, I'm assuming, and Mr. Johnson may be better at this, if we close off maybe wherever the opening is underneath the school so that the animals won't be able to go under there anymore, once they remove them all and the exterminators do what they need to do under there, just maybe sealing off any openings underneath the school so that the animals won't go under.
And then my last question pertaining to this, when this all started, it was reported that someone had been bitten by a flea, is that?
It was, what I received was it was reported that someone had been bitten, so they didn't know what they were bitten by.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Gary did go out to, observe the exterminator, I believe was the person that said it was fleas. But it did initiate with, a student or an individual being bitten, and they didn't know what had bitten the individual.
Is this Reed also?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Dr. Brown.
Okay, the 16th section, interest funds, board members, we did total up the expenditures that were, included in the itemized list for the band and choral arts. It did come up to, it added up to $735,776. Now we are going back, the music and band departments, and we're going back to, cap those expenses around the 200 to 400,000. Dr. Hards will be working with the staff so that we can get that to you by Monday. On the back of that page, this is just estimate. We're not saying that we will hit the $400,000 mark, but that's to give our band and music staff a limit or cutoff limit, and they'll just use what they've itemized and choose what they need as of now, and we'll bring those back to the board.
Madam President, I'm looking at the numbers, Dr. Brown, for the
Yes, ma'am.
elementary schools, and I
Yes.
see split among the elementary schools. Is that enough?
Yes, ma'am, based upon what they submitted, it's
Okay.
enough.
Okay.
Also, on the next page is the COVID-19 updates, and we're posting daily. We will change this daily. This will be posted on our district's website and Facebook page, and so it just gives you, the positive cases that we have. It will give you the positive cases that we have each week at each of the schools. And so as the numbers change, this will change on our district's website and Facebook pages.
I would also like to add, that on the Mississippi State Department of Health, public guidance for the prevention and control of COVID-19 in K-12 settings. Mr. Johnson, if you don't mind, can you come? I guess it's ringing and I don't know how to answer it. For the 21-22 school year. Because I've gotten calls about, Greenwood High School closing, and it says that outbreaks, and outbreak is defined as less than or equal to 3 cases of COVID-19 in the classroom for groups, and that deals with sport teams, group activity band or other, or 30 or less, or 10% or more of larger groups within a 14-day period. And so Dr. Dobbs is saying that it is recommended that they quarantine from school for 14 days, or individuals may return to school based on the 10-day and 7-day plus test options. So I'm encouraging all parents to please go to www.msdh.ms.gov, and you will be able to see the updates, read the updates. They say Dr. Dobbs do updates every day on the Facebook or their webpage. Same thing for athletics. The Mississippi High School Association says that schools who choose to go to a hybrid schedule where at least 50% of the academic day is in-person learning will be allowed to play their scheduled games. Schools or students who choose to go 100% virtual will be allowed to continue to practice with school district consent, but will not be allowed to play their scheduled games until a return to in-person learning. Schools who are 100% virtual and allow practice to continue will be limited to 2 hours per day practice at the conclusion of the regular school day. So parents, I encourage you to please go to the Mississippi High School Association, and also for the COVID updates from Dr. Dobbs, that's www.msdh.ms.gov. And also for Dr. Brown, or maybe you can give more insight dealing with the faculty and staff, because if the students are gone, the question is, what about the faculty and staff being on campus?
So in the event that students have to quarantine, if the teachers or any staff members have not come in direct contact with those who have to quarantine, they must report to work. So the staff will be on the campus, the teachers will be teaching from their classrooms, because they have not come in direct contact with staff, with anyone who has reported positive for COVID-19. In the event that they do and they have to quarantine, the teachers are still prepared to provide instruction from home virtually.
Can you also speak to vaccinated and unvaccinated people?
Okay, so Mr. Johnson may be more versed on that. Mr. Johnson.
Based off the 7-day policy that we test out, so if a staff member is vaccinated, they can quarantine for 5 days, and then they will test, and if they have a negative test, they are able to return immediately once that negative test is shown if they are vaccinated. Unvaccinated, they have to test either day 5, 6, or 7. They will have a negative test on those days, and they're not able to return until after day 7. And that's because we chose the 7-day testing option. You had a choice of the 7-day, 10-day, or 14-day.
So is there any way that this could be conveyed so that we can all be on one accord, because it's different things being communicated?
Now, it has been sent out to principals. They have them, the parents have them. I know when we first selected that option, that information is out on the choice of the person that tests positive. That is a 10-day isolation period. That's automatic. Anybody that tests positive, regardless of status, whether they vaccinated or unvaccinated, they have to isolate for 10 days. I mean, they can't return to the school setting within 10 days. Now, for those that are quarantined, we have the 7-day option that was chosen, and that's for the unvaccinated. They quarantine regardless for 7 days, but they cannot test until day 5, 6, or 7. They test must show that they tested either day 5, 6, or 7. As long as that test is negative, they can return after day 7. For those that are vaccinated, they will quarantine for 5 days, but they can test either day 3 or day 4. But if they test negative on day 3 or day 4, they are able to return immediately, and that's for the vaccinated only.
Madam President,
Yeah.
if I may, in regards to the MHSAA statement that you made, of course, I'm of the opinion that MHSAA cannot institute policy that may go against what our district policy is or what the administration or the board feels is in the best interest of our students, and not just specifically our student athletes. Moreover, I do think that it is very important that we are consistent in whatever our applications are as it pertains to protocol for isolation and quarantine of student athletes, and what activities that they're able to participate in.
So Dr. Brown, what protocol has been established if we're quarantining from school that is, dealing with athletics?
Well, if the entire school is virtual, then, we're not able to, when it comes to, since we're in football season, if the entire school is virtual, then they're not able to play on that game day.
But as far as practice?
They do have the 2-hour, practices, they are able to practice for 2 hours.
Madam President, again, that goes back to my consistency piece, because it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that other schools have gone virtually in our district, and they were not allowed to practice. And again, consistency.
Can I speak on that?
Dr. Brown?
Yes, but you can speak to me, Mr. Gabriel.
But before you do that, Attorney Pulley,
Yes, ma'am.
did you hear the conversation?
The conversation regarding whether or not MHS, the High School Activity Association has the authority to tell the board or to the school who should close and how they should close?
Correct.
Well, I believe they do have the authority as it relates to athletics, but board members, given the information that I spoke about earlier regarding the unofficial opinion, I keep stressing unofficial opinion. The unofficial opinion from the AG's office really would, it basically says that any schools that are closed without the board approval is invalid and incorrect at this time. So I would advise the board to do two things. If the board agrees with the superintendent's decision about any of the schools that are closed at this time, I would advise the board to make a motion to ratify that decision, to make that decision formal, and put it in the board's minutes. If the board, if it is not the consensus of the board that the schools be closed, whether it's Leflore, whether it's Greenwood High, or whoever, or what have you, I advise the board to make a motion. The board has the right at that point to make a motion about the reopening of schools. I'm giving you those two options because, in accordance with that opinion that I received yesterday, any school that is closed right now without board approval is invalid.
Well, at this time, I am in agreement with the superintendent, according to the CDC, that gives us numbers more or equal to 3. So I will follow the guidelines of what Dr. Dobbs and the CDC says. That's my opinion. Board members?
I think what Dr. Bailey is saying, his concern is consistency. And that's something that we will work to address. But Mr. Gabriel, if you have any comments, you may, but I do understand what Dr. Bailey is. His concern is consistency amongst whatever the decisions are.
Based on
Can you get a microphone, Coach Gatewood?
Board members, before Coach Gatewood gets the microphone, to help and to help the administration with the consistency, board members, I think we would be within your duty to have a policy regarding virtual learning and sports. And those statements that you read, Ms. Milton, from the High School Activity Association, put that in a policy, and then the school board would have spoken through its minutes, and the administration would have to follow that policy for all of the schools.
May I speak, Madam President?
Yes, you may.
Based on the other schools, when it comes to Leflore and Amanda Elza High School, Leflore and Amanda Elza High School had COVID cases on the team. That's why the team had to quarantine. Based on the knowledge that we have now, no one on the football team tested positive. It's a difference. What Mississippi High School Activity Association said, if you are 100% virtual, you must go, you can practice, but you cannot participate in competition. Where in the past, Leflore County High School and Amanda Elza High School had positive cases on the team. Not the school, but on the team. That's why they had to quarantine, because they had positive cases on the team. Well, due to Greenwood High School football team, we do not have positive cases on the team. Now, we had a positive case on the team, then we all must quarantine like we did at the beginning of August. So that's one reason why they was not able to practice, because they was in quarantine. But as of today, there's no positive cases affects Greenwood High School football team for practicing those 2 hours a day.
Question, Madam President.
Go ahead, Dr. Madden.
Contact tracing, Mr. Johnson and Dr. Brown suggests that I may not be positive today, but between today's date and a 10-day window, if I'm retested, I can test positive, if I'm not mistaken. So again, if we're contact tracing and individuals of whatever athletic team or extracurricular activity is a potential close contact or even identified as a close contact, to err on the side of caution or out of an abundance of caution regarding safety, we just simply need to be consistent.
Well, we had one student that came in contact with a positive student. He was notified on yesterday. He understood that he must quarantine for those days, but any other student on the team was not notified. We get daily updates on kids that were tested or came in contact tracing with other kids that came up positive. Those kids were removed from the program. Because to my knowledge, if you don't come direct contact with a person that's positive, you don't have to quarantine. Just only the ones that came direct contact with that person. So out of the 70 kids that we had, we only had one student that was in contact with a student that was positive. And that student right there was removed from the team for those days, which we found out yesterday. Other than that, we had no other student name came on the list that came in contact with no other student that was positive.
So Dr. Brown, Mr. Johnson, and Coach Gaywood, do you know when Leflore High or LZ had students that were out with COVID? Do you all know that they not practice football or not? I'm saying being consistent.
I can answer that. They did not practice because a member of the team tested positive. So by him being at practice with the other kids, they came in contact tracing with them. But we don't have that same problem. It's two different situations.
I got you.
You know, we can't make one situation look like the other situation. So the only thing I'm saying is that when it happened to LZ and Leflore, they had a positive case on the team.
On the actual team, I got you.
And I think, Madam President,
Go
may I
ahead.
please? And I think for me, I think I would need the term consistency that's relevant to this particular issue. Can we operationally define that, Dr. Bailey?
What works at Greenwood High, whatever rules are applied at Greenwood High are also applicable at Leflore and Hills. But again, we are always reminded, or I am, that we're one district now, we're not separate. So let's act accordingly as such.
In
That's
regard,
consistent.
in regard to the
Everything.
athletics?
Everything.
Okay.
I mean, if it's a class that's being offered at the floor, if that's, advanced physics, it needs to be offered at all the schools.
Okay.
So just consistency within the district and across the board.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
I was thinking it was in terms of athletics. Okay.
Ms. Moore, the consistency is this here. If we quarantined the beginning of August because we had a positive case. That's one reason why we was unable to play the Jamboree game, because we had a positive case. So we are consistent. But if we do not have a positive case now, we should be allowed to continue to practice. Well, in other cases, when Leflore and Elsa had a positive case, they had to do the same thing we did at the beginning of August. So we are being consistent. We have one policy in this district. The athletics follow by, and all three schools follow by the same policy. We have no inconsistency when it comes to policy. We're not showing any favoritism towards one school. We're abiding by the rules because that's what we follow, policy. Policies were going to take us and get us out of trouble in case we did something wrong. So we are following the policy.
And my last statement, Madam President, in regard to this, the AD mentioned favoritism. I have spoken with the superintendent, and I have provided photos to show favoritism as it pertains to the athletic department, but I digress.
And those photos, let me speak on it real quick. I just spoke with.
What we won't do, I just wanna continue, Ms. Gatewood, we already taking care of it, Dr. Bailey.
Thank you, Coach Gatewood. So board members, as it relates to consistency, Coach Gatewood just confirmed that Greenwood High School football team does not have positive cases, so in that case, they would still practice. He said at the time that Elsie and Leflore had positive cases, and that's why they did not practice. So board members, what do you define as being consistent? So I would like to hear from you. Other than Dr. Bailey and I.
Madam President, in the area of expertise of athletics, I had to defer to Coach Gatewood and Dr. Bailey, because I don't, fully understand that athletic piece of this. And as I move forward into this position, I, just trying to get an understanding.
So, like, for instance, when the volleyball teams were quarantining, did the other teams that were playing still play?
When the volleyball team quarantined, they did not play because
I'm saying, but did other teams still practice?
they continue to play. Yes, like today, by Greenwood High School out, the volleyball team for Amanda Hills is still playing, but Leflore cannot play because they out virtual until Thursday. So when they return back to school on Thursday, they will continue to play. The Florida game was canceled today because they out. But Amanda Elsa games continue. And it was vice versa when Elsa was out. Greenwood and Leflore continue to play.
But why would Leflore, Dr. Brown, not play if they're not quarantining? They out for fleas, not
Well, I think from what I read this morning, if they're virtual for whatever reason, if they're 100% virtual, yes, ma'am.
It's just not about the COVID situation. Okay. If the school is 1% virtual, they cannot participate. They can continue to practice, but not participate.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Lewis.
So, Mr. Gatewood, so Greenwood High is the entire school is quarantining right now. Is that correct? So are the athletes not in fact students? So how, just make me understand, how in fact do they continue to practice?
The reason why, Ms. Lewis, is because it's what they call acclimatization. Acclimatization period is a 14-day period that you can allow a student to prepare for the season. And what the Mississippi High School Activities Association did back here in July, they said they would not punish a student because the school went 1% virtual. So what they did is they allowed the teams to continue to practice for 2 hours in case the school decided, like we're doing right now, like Greenwood gonna be out for 2 weeks. Well, when they come back, they don't have to go back through the acclimatization period of getting the kids properly prepared to perform the next week. So, in other words, they're saying that we're not gonna let this kid stay out of shape for 14 days and have to come back the next week and compete. That's one of the reasons they said if the board and the superintendent do their approval, because when we return on the 27th and we start back practicing, well, you got a game coming up on the 4th, 3rd or 4th. So instead of that kid being out of shape, hadn't done anything for 2 weeks, what they did, they said we allow them to practice for those 2 weeks.
So do we know for a fact that all of the football players are negative?
To right now, Miss Lou, we never know. Right now, it's just like going. And if this case never happened at Greenwood High School, with no symptoms, no signs, no nothing, they continue to practice. And we don't test every day. We don't test every week. It's just we're taking a chance from that. As of right now, no student that's participating with Greenwood High School football team have tested positive. And we've been playing for the last 2 to 3 weeks. So I cannot say what won't happen tomorrow or Thursday, but we've been trying to follow our same protocol that we've been doing for the last year.
But it just makes me think about then why was the entire school closed?
Well, that deals with manpower. So once when you do the contact tracing, if we don't have enough staff, if the principal says that I don't have enough staff to sufficiently continue to run this school so that we can monitor our students, then we don't have a choice but to go virtual. There have been cases where we sent other staff to another school to help support, but we don't have that for Greenwood High, so we wouldn't have been able to send the number of individuals over in that time. And even during that time when the decision was made, Mr. Clerk was continuing to contact trace, and the numbers kept going up. But the quarantine / closure, we do have individuals who are quarantining, but we don't have the manpower when it comes to the staff, because staff came in contact as well to continue to make sure that we are properly supervising the kids on campus.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, Dr. Brown. I just wondered, did some of those athletes come into contact with some of those students?
According to what we have, I haven't received that about the football team. I haven't received, I think we only had one that came in contact with someone who tested positive, but not the team.
Coach Gabriel, would you say that every head coach is totally familiar with all the policies involved?
Yes, ma'am. They understand that once a student on their team comes positive, every member of their team must get checked. And what we'll do, we'll call the parents, we'll notify the parents that your child came in contact with a student that's on the team that tested positive for COVID. We will let them, if they're fully vaccinated, we try to get everything set up within 5 to 6 days of the notification date. Once everyone is tested and they have a negative result, then they can return back to play, which is usually on the 8th day. And it's the same policy that we've been following since we have returned back to sports. Not one for Leflore, not one for Greenwood, but all schools in one district.
Coach Gaywood, as it relates to football, could you please, do you do things different for Greenwood that you don't do for Leflore and Elder?
Ms. Milton, when it comes to personalizing for one school, different other school,
No.
I don't.
I'm speaking of COVID-19.
No, I don't. I don't think, every coach must follow the same protocol.
But I'm asking you, from board member to athletic director, whatever you do for Greenwood High, I'm asking you to do the same for Leflore High School and for Elsie High School.
I do.
Thank
I
you.
do.
Any other question, board members? Dr. Brown?
Page 3, the corrected copy of the executive summary is an attachment. The only change is the FY 22 payroll cutoff calendar, Mrs. Washington.
Good afternoon, board. What we have is just the attached payroll cutoff dates, calendars for regular program as well as bus drivers. We had to extend the days out so they could get a normal paycheck. So do you have any questions about
Yeah,
the
because
dates?
have we ever received two different payroll schedules like this before? I don't recall this.
Well, what happened, I think 2 years ago, we moved from annualization to having to pay them due to COVID based on their actual hours worked. So we had to do a separate schedule then, which was last year. And so we did do two calendars, but the calendar normally is in the staff handbook. And so I know that we did do two last year, but prior to that, we normally had the one calendar, but that's because everybody was annualized.
So you saying this is due to COVID?
Yes.
Question, Madam President.
Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
Dr. Brown, because of the amendment of the schedule, will the handbook have to be what's the term?
Or was it even included in the handbook?
It's included in the handbook.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
This is included?
Yes, ma'am.
The first page of the regular,
Is the second one in there, Ms. Washington?
the second one is probably not, because we just did this based on,
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out how could it be in there and we didn't approve it?
well, to be honest, I've never had one that I had to do an executive summary on, so I don't know how you received it in the past.
Okay, Dr. Brown, will the handbook have to be
Yes,
revised?
ma'am. We'll revise it and submit it for
For
October.
approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Okay, Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the payroll cutoff calendars for the FY 2022 school year.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the payroll cutoff calendars for, am I saying 21, 22? Or just one? I guess it's 21, 22.
It's 21-22 school year.
Yeah, okay, it's not on here. So chair will entertain a motion to approve the payroll cutoff calendars for FY 21-22 school year.
So moved.
It's been motioned and second, all in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Approval of memorandum of understanding with the juvenile detention center, Ms. Coleman.
This memorandum of understanding in conjunction with Mississippi Code 43-21-321, which gives the youth court judge the legal right to designate a school district as the sponsoring district, will ensure instruction as well as related services are provided to detained students in the Leflore County Juvenile Detention Center. And we are presenting this memorandum of understanding for the first time because MDE during our audit has asked for it. The law does permit the youth court judge to designate a local school district. It's law, but they would like something more succinct, like a memorandum of understanding. In the past, we had two school districts, Greenwood Public and Leflore County. Now we only have one district, but they still want us to enter into an agreement, although there's only one district.
Question, Madam President.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Coleman, how many districts do we service with this particular, with
20.
with the JDC?
22 school districts.
So, Ms. Coleman, why on the back, the executed authorized representative, why does it have two different things?
Say that one more time, Ms. Miller.
On the back, the executed by authorized representative, why would it have two two different things.
Okay, one will be signed by the superintendent of the school district, and one line will be signed by Judge Adams at the court system.
But it says Leflore County School District. So I'm saying like, we are Greenwood Leflore Consolidated, so why would it be two?
Yeah, they're supposed to say Leflore County Court System.
Oh, okay. So is this time sensitive?
Yes, ma'am. We are addressing a state audit that we have had by MDE. Again, the state law permits the judge to appoint a school district. And MDE, well, actually, Judge Adams wrote a letter saying, by state law, the law that's stated here, I am permitted to designate a school district, but MDE asked us to do a memorandum of understanding. Anyway, although the law supersedes the memorandum, they just align and say the same thing, that he's permitted by law to designate us as the sponsoring district to educate detained students.
Question, Madam President. Dr. Brown, Ms. Colvin.
Yes.
On page 8, just for clarification, that date that's listed, will
Yes,
that
sir.
be updated?
It will be updated. Initially, the school board meeting we were supposed to have in October, and the documents to MDE is due on the 10th of October. But when we found out we were having a special call board meeting, I jumped right in so that we could just go ahead and submit this documentation for the audit.
So you say it's due by October 10th?
Yes, ma'am.
So would it be too late if we, table this, if we were to table it, and, for our, work session on September 20th? Yeah. 27th, is that too late?
No, ma'am. We're still servicing the kids and teaching the kids. Nothing will change. But we were trying to, we had a few pieces of things that we needed to submit, and we were trying to go ahead and submit those items.
Board members.
Go ahead, Attorney Cook.
I know you mentioned about tabling it until the work session.
Uh-huh.
I know, and I think Ms. Golden said it's due on October the 10th. Just remind the board members that we can't take action at the work session.
Okay, I got you. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And we are sure that we just continue our educational services of the detained students. That's all.
We would say our board meeting is on October 5th, but. Okay, Dr. Brown. Any other questions, board members?
I do have one other question.
Go ahead.
Dr. Brown, is Greenwood High School banned quarantining?
Yes.
Okay.
The superintendent recommends school board approval of the 2021-2022 memorandum of understanding with the Juvenile Detention Center to provide instruction and related services to detained students.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the 21-22 MOU with the JDC to provide instruction and related services to detained students.
Second.
It's been motion and second, all in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Mr. Coleman, please don't forget to make a correction on the back.
Yes, ma'am. It will say Leflore County Court System.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I have one announcement to the public before we go, to the next thing. The board has been invited to, the Voters League this Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Just want to remind Dr. Brown and Ms. Washington, and, this will not be considered a board meeting. So at that time, I will go in with one of the board members, and then maybe 30 minutes later, Dr. Bailey and one of the board members will go in. So we're inviting the public to attend. This will not be a board meeting. Chair will entertain a motion to close this session for consideration of executive session. It's been motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?